Okay, everyone, I think it's time to further our seminar in group 4. Okay, let's shift our attention to our fourth group, which will be talking about is non-standard English a broken language or linguistic innovations? So this topic will explore the debate around non-standard English varieties like dialects, pidgins, and Creoles. It looks at whether these forms are viewed as broken or valued as creative and adaptive languages. Students can examine attitudes toward non-standard English, its role in identity and community, and its impact on teaching media and professional settings. So now, please give a warm round and applause to our speakers.
All right, first of all, I'd like you guys to introduce yourself first.
All right, I am Nadia Karia from English Major Education. Yeah.
Hey, and me, Adilah Diyu Delima from English Major as well.
I'm Safara Saite, or you can call me Sarah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Damia Side or Dami.
I'm Thanasorn Thinnam, and we are all from English Major.
First of all, what is considered non-standard English and what is considered standard English?
Okay, let me start first. Non-standard English is the variations of English that's shaped by different and diverse cultural and native background. So when we speak English differently, and it can consider as non-standard because we do not follow the norms of standard, which is British English or American English. That is called standard English. Yes.
And based on Kreischu model, that we know that there is 3 circles, right? Inner, outer, and expanding. And I think the outer and expanding can become a non-standard English, and inner is counts in become standard English.
All right. So, but within the inner circle countries, within the inner circle, there are multiple varieties of English, and not all are considered standard English, right? So, which varieties refer to standard Englishes? I mean, in the inner circle.
Okay, inner circle, I think it's the same terms that we consider as the owner of English, but it's just like the native speakers that before English will spread out before colonization, right? So that terms we call the inner circle, the country which belong inner circle, like British and then American, and then it spread out to outer circle. Yes.
Right. Can you give me specific varieties that people in general consider them to be standard? What are some specific varieties that are considered standard varieties of English?
Do you want to answer?
There are 2 mainstream varieties. Which kind of American English?
I think that considered as a standard, right?
Yes.
So for my opinion, it's going to be American and then British. That is considered as standard English as nowadays. Yeah.
And when you mention American English, there are several American Englishes, right? Which particular variety is spoken by Americans that is considered standard?
In American?
Yeah.
The way to speak like American accent?
No,
like
there
that?
are multiple varieties within the U.S. Like the hillbilly accent, Southern Appalachian, New York, network American accent. So which one is considered standard?
The English that we use in textbook or in school or in the policy or formal context. Yes, that it's typically and particular that we can consider as standard English because it's dominant language that all around of the world used to follow, not used to, is still following the standard in context, in the book text, textbook and school. That.
So we call it GA, or General American English. Some people call it Network American English, that is considered to be standard. This is the accent particularly spoken in northeastern part of the U.S., particularly in Boston, in New York, so on and so forth. Okay, we call it Network American or General American accent. Shifting to Britain, okay, which variety is considered standard, which is used as a model in many schools across non-native countries. Which English, which variety of English that is considered standard British English?
Is it RP count?
Yes, RP. Okay, RP has many nicknames. Do you know its nicknames?
No.
Yeah, posh. Some call it posh Oxford English or BBC English. In the old days, you know, when they wanted to hire reporters, because they would select people, I mean reporters from BBC, from RP backgrounds. So that's what benefit them, right, to become BBC reporters. They would choose people who have an RP accent, but nowadays they still prefer RP, but not as much as before.
And you think it has become accent privilege?
Yes, it creates accent privilege because you know, when a certain accent is favored over others, then it causes discrimination, prejudice. Okay, go on. Yeah, good then. So, do you think that definition, when we attempt to define what is standard and what is non-standard, do you think there are problems that arise from these attempts to define those terms? When we define what is deemed to be standard English, do you think that this attempt is problematic? Do you think it's problematic? Do you think that it causes problems when we define a certain variety to be standard, to enjoy the standard status? However, other varieties do not. Do you think this is problematic? This causes problems?
For my
Yes.
my own opinion, I
Yeah.
think it may lead to discrimination of English user.
Oh, yeah. Can you give me an example of linguistic discrimination in practice?
In practical,
Yes. What are discrimination? What are discriminatory practices that arise from language used?
as we know that most of people, like specifically in Thai, we always like make a privilege of the people who can use English in the native like way. So I think it may have the like a picture that see that person as a higher level of English user and different from the non-standard English.
Right. So have you heard of the term linguistic prejudice? Prejudice? Yes? Yeah, prejudice. Prejudice is the idea that you label varieties, whether positive or negative. That's prejudice, right? But if that ideas come into action, we call it discrimination, right? For example, you choose people from certain language varieties, right? You want to recruit people based on their linguistic background, and that's what we call linguistic discrimination. And if you judge people to be educated, to sound competent, to sound wealth, this is what we call prejudicial practice. Okay, these are the two concepts that are different, right? Okay. So my next question is that let's shift to broken English. What is broken English? What is broken English? This term is very debatable. Debatable. But yeah, I want to hear from you. How do you pursue? How do you approach this word, broken English?
For me, I perceive the broken English, broken language as the use of language that deviates from the standard forms. And when we use that language, it can be shift the meaning and lead to the mispronunciation between the interlocutor.
So,
And I want to add more from him, like we speak English in spoken language or do not follow the norms of standard English, and it can lead to misunderstanding. It can break down the meaning or do not maintain the aim of the meaning between communicative context. So at the term, I can consider that it is the broken language.
So is non-standard English broken form of English?
I think in terms of aim that what we have focused on, if we are focused on like education, we can say that non-standard English can be considered as broken. But if we focus on like communication, it also can be considered as linguistic innovation.
How do you distinguish, linguistic innovation from broken English?
How? Okay, so for example, like for definition of innovation, it is process that creating something new, new ideas, new method, a new product. So it's kind of like linguistic because if we see of characteristic of language is productivity. So that's why time also change. That's language also adapt, also evolve. So it brings to the new language or new version of language. For example, in Malaysia, for Malaysia people, they always add the word la in the last sentence, like you can do la, you can eat la. So this kind of, so this is kind of linguistic innovation that we have known. We do not know for our community, but if we see and that community, Malaysia community, you can see like linguistic innovation.
But I would say that innovation or creativity arises from mistake or erroneous, right? But sometimes, erroneous that is produced by native speakers is finally accepted as standard. However, erroneous that that is produced by non-native speakers is not finally accepted as standard. What is your view on this? I'll give you an example. I want to buy 2 coffees. So this is considered innovation because it's native speakers who invented coffees. Actually, coffee cannot take plural morpheme s, right? But if you tend to say that I want 2 coffees, you are awarded for being able to use real English because native speakers use it. Yeah, they did. They do use this form. I want 2 coffees. But if you extend this use to the word wine, I want 2 wines, wrong. Because native speakers don't recognize wine with an S. What is your view on this? Yes. Can. Yes. Yeah. So, I want to hear from you guys. What is your thought on this? Sometimes it can be considered, creativity. Sometimes it does not. It's not recognized as creativity. Yes.
So we can create, any new, Thai as one, and we claim that I am Thai.
Yes.
This is the way I use Thai.
Look at him.
Be accepted.
Very ลำไยจังเลยสิลำไยso ลำไยมากเลย
Very long gone.
He is very annoying. Yeah, this is.
Not acceptable. Not acceptable. You are so lam yong.
ลำไยมากเลยลำไยมากเลย What is your Yes.
That's very good point actually. Yeah.
Yes, for my opinion, I think the concept of language innovation is the way we create new way of language by adapting with our native language. So that is the way innovation. But if we think about why standard if they are like if they create new thing but it's not innovation, right? It's not considered as language innovation because they already adapt with they structure as well, like add s as plural, but as our own language, our own English is like definitely use our native language. It's not English, but we adapt with our Thai language with it, so it become innovation.
Can you add?
Yeah, I think what she tried to say, like we have different standard. We have standard of our mother tongue because our first language is from Thai or Malaysia. From Malaysia, it's Bahasa, right? But from native, right? They already have standard from English. But why they have to adapt again? But we have to adapt because our first language is from other. It's not English. Yeah.
So there are different procedures that explain innovation. The first one is regularization. Linguistic regularization is how we make English forms less simple, right? Expression with go, went and gone. In the past, 100 years ago, people do not have this structure, go, ga, gas, whatever, right? It's very difficult. So they regularize it, they make it simple, they make it they make it simpler, okay? Like the word data and datum. In the past, we have to distinguish between data and datum, but right now we use them interchangeably, whether it's plural or singular. So that's the process of linguistic regularization. Another process is bilingual creativity that you mentioned, right? So we are creative when it comes to language use. Okay. So my question is, why are we creative when we use the language?
Yeah, of course. We are use English for communication, right? And in this world, we are not use English as the first language. So we use it as a lingua franca. So we have English for make it easier for communicate, understandable. Yeah.
Yes, right. Yes.
From the past to the present, every language keeps changing on the way time, right? On the way to like Thai, comparing of era, for example, and even comparing to these two, in the past and even now, they are completely different. So language should not be frozen actually. Yeah. It can be keep changing. Everything
Yes.
based on communities, context. Yeah.
So let's talk about broken form of English, right? When we talk about error or mistake in English, who is to judge whether such usage is an error or not? Who is to judge?
Standard English.
No, when you come across an error.
Who judge?
Who judges whether such usage is an error?
Standard norm.
Okay, for me, who judge that was broken or not is the listeners. If the listener can get the point of what speaker said, or they don't understand that, they will think what do they say, what do they say about, and define it as a broken language because they don't know.
In that case, if you are not able to speak like a native speaker, if the way you use the language is not aligned to native speaker, but if your interlocutor still understand your message, you are not considered as the erroneous, right? Based on what you have just said. How do you define errors of the language?
I define the error of the language like when we use the severe very serious grammatical errors like she go to school to and in the form school go to you like this when we use too severe that too up from the standard English those British and American English that everyone knows everyone learn about and it created other meanings that we don't know I defined it at that earlier
Yeah, but
Right.
but what based on what you have just raised from Ajahn Shah, I'm not sure if I misunderstand your point or not, but I can feel that the way you define error or not error is not about grammatical rules, but it's about if your interlocutors still understand your language or not, even though if you use incorrect grammar, but if your interlocutors still understand your English, you are not considered as the errors. But if your interlocutors not understand your language, in that case you consider as the error. That's what I feel that's response.
yes I talk about the field of intelligibility
So you mainly focus on intelligibility. So error or not error, you define as intelligibility. So when you use the language, if your communicator, if your interlocutor still understand your English, even though you use incorrect grammar form, for example, you are not going to consider as the error, right?
yes
But if you speak the language and even though you use correct form of grammar, but if your interlocutor do not understand your English, will you consider as the error or not error?
can you elaborate more
Because you have just made, because you mentioned that you focus on, error or not error, you focus on intelligibility, right?
yes
Right?
yes
Yes, okay. So what I'm trying to say is that, at the beginning, I tried to say that once you mainly focus on your intelligibility, if you use English, if you speak English, okay, if you communicate in English with your brain, for example, even though you use incorrect grammatical form, but if your brain still understands your English, you are not going to consider as linguistic error, yes or no? Yes or no?
yes
Yes,
but
okay.
But if I talk with the foreigners who don't have same background with me, if they don't know same background in me and they don't understand about Thai norms,
Yeah,
Thai idioms,
I
in that
understand,
case.
Okay. But I have another question.
Okay.
Okay. How about if you speak English? You use correct form, grammatical form, but still you not understand your English. Will you consider your English as error or not error?
I will consider it as the error because the goal of communication is to intelligibility.
So you mainly focus on intelligibility. So it's not about either you use the language, English in this case, correct or incorrect forms of grammar. As long as your interlocutors still understand, you are not going to consider as the error. So your error, based on your definition, is not about correct or incorrect grammar, but it's about your interlocutors still understand your message or not. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, and I want to add more. He just talked about who judge, right? Who judge for him is just interlocutor, but for me it's the context. Context can be the one who judge that your language is broken or not. For example, you using your language, your non-standard English in context of education. So that way we already have the certain rules to based on what language that you stand for, like it's broken or not. If you not follow the standard in terms of testing or writing paragraph like this, it can be considered as broken. Yes.
let's talk about lexical differences. Okay, lexical differences. So there are many lexical items that are created by Thai users of English. For example, when you enter university, you hear the word freshie instead of freshman, right? There are so many freshies on campus, and many of them are very high so because they eat lunch at food park. Food park. What is food park? And many go to the temple to make merit. And when they graduate, they have, men. Most men like to have minor wives. Minor wives, right? Okay. Yeah. Are these terms considered innovation? Are these terms considered linguistic innovation? Minor wife, food park, freshie, high so. She is very high so because, her bag costs around 40,000 baht. Her bag is 40,000 baht. So, do you consider these terms linguistic innovation?
Can I focus on focus on interlocutor? First, if I have to communicate with foreigner, I think it is broken because there is the real word of English, like freshie from freshman. There is a freshman, yeah, freshman. I think it's broken while we speak with foreigners, but while we speak with the same society, I think it is innovation because everyone understand what we are or are we try to mean. Yeah.
Okay. What about you guys? What do you think?
So it focuses on intelligibility.
Okay.
If we can understand each other, whether it's just a bit of different word or word choice from standard English, but if we're understanding, we can communicate, we can holding this conversation, it can lead to linguistic innovation.
Right. What about you?
I would like to add more because for me, the innovation cannot fit all the people around the world. Like the solar cell, the innovation of solar cells, we can use the solar cell to the person who don't use the electricity. So innovations have their own way to use with their certain people.
All right. Okay. What about this? What about these situations? Do you know the word hotspot? Wi-Fi hotspot? Okay, you know what it means? This word has just been created by native speakers, and everyone seems to accept it as standard form later on, right? Do you know the word bromance, brother and romance, yes, okay, right? Do you know the word sitcom? Sitcom has just recently been added to the dictionary. So, okay, do you think that these terms are considered standard forms of English or broken forms of English?
I think if it become in dictionary, I think it's gonna be standard form in the future.
And who decides which words are included, are indexed in a dictionary then?
Numerous of people, of speaker using English use. If many people use it and it's become common, and later it become a standard.
So there is a possibility that words invented by Thai English users are finally accepted as standards. No? No?
I think there is some word that construct from original Thai to become a English word in dictionary, like
right.
specific word, in Thai.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah,
Yes, and tuk-tuk.
The name of food in Thai.
What if I say, is your exam, is your is your exam. Your exam is approaching, so keep fighting. Is fighting accepted as a standard term? Fighting?
How we define this word?
Yes. Do you think it's
I think I consider this word in terms of innovation. Like it's we use this word in creative way, and we use in the specific community, like among friends, and we all of us understand this word.
But many native speakers do not find it understandable. Are you going to fight against someone?
I think just specific in our community. Yeah.
Right. So
Can you use this word with foreigners like a native speaker?
I think no.
I think you can explain later.
yes, you can explain later. This is an innovation. The word fighting is also used by Chinese users, Chinese speakers of English. They use add oil, which means 加油, which means fighting. Korean speakers of English also use the word fighting, right, to cheer someone up. Keep fighting, which means that you cheer someone up, you support somebody, right? Maybe what Ajahn Yusuf has said, that maybe it's an opportunity for you to explain this particular innovation to foreigners, right?
Yeah, because if you say you are not, if these terms not allowed to use with foreigners, so how you going to explain those local words like a Buddha like that? So when you speak with foreigners, maybe we try to use the local word like Buddha first, right? Then we can try to explain later what does it mean in that case, and also the context of you speaking with I think maybe you can use as a tool in order to describe the definition of some particular words, right?
To define or not, to recognize certain items as standard or non-standard, sometimes you have to think of innovation. Sometimes you have to think of how, yeah.
I'm just wondering because like you asked at the beginning, how do they define standard and non-standard, right? And just when you focus on British and American, for example, right? But based on their perspectives, it seems like the way you define standard and non-standard are completely or maybe partly different to what you mentioned at the beginning. So now, let me ask you this again. How do you define standard and non-standard? No, because when you mentioned at the beginning, you define standard and non-standard English based on the like a theoretical perspective. Okay, those English we use among in a certain country you define as standard, right? But based on what you have just shared your experience, your ideas and your perspective, like you said, for example, no, I do not consider error or not error based on grammatical or correct or incorrect grammar, but I mainly based on the intelligibility of the language, which is completely different standard and non-standard. So it seems like the way you define standard English and non-standard English is partly different to what you mentioned at the beginning. So I just wondering if your definition regarding standard or non-standard English is still the same or you have
Yeah. So after exploring these two concepts, right? Have you changed? Does body of knowledge regarding standard and non-standard Englishes shapes the way you define the word standard or non-standard?
Or maybe do we still is that still necessary? We define the word standard or non-standard by linking or by relating to British or American English.
So, what's your thought on this? Yeah. What's your thought on this?
Or we can have another option how to define a standard and non-standard based on our own context, based on our own perspective.
Yeah. What's your thought on this?
Based on our own unique ways of using the language.
Okay.
Without linking back to native or non-native. Yes.
Okay.
I think standard is still one of dialect, right? It's one of dialect, but we still have standard to become non-standard. You confused? Before we have non-standard, of course we have to have standard English.
some challenging questions regarding this subject, right? Based on this particular concept. So, I mean, in the past, even we still somehow, perceive that standard or non-standard English based on by linking it to inner circle Englishes, like a British and American English, right? But when we're talking about the concept of global Englishes.
Okay, you think that still a standard is important?
Standard English still exists.
Still exists. Yeah. I want to know your opinion. I want to hear from you.
Because I had an opportunity to attend one of the workshop organized in Bangkok by British Council, and the main keynote speakers was Professor Jennifer Jennings. Okay, she is considered as the mother or the queen of the applied linguistics. And you know what's the name of the topic of the workshop? The titles was that should it be an end of standard English test like IELTS and TOEFL?
Okay. Do you think? Yeah. What's your thought on this?
In my perspective, I believe that standard English it exists in the context of test and international stage. There's a person from an international, from worldwide, have to choose the English standard English to speak with each other to be better understanding to understand with each other flawless.
Okay. What are the components of standard English? For certain varieties, for a certain variety to enjoy the standard status, so it has to acquire what components?
It have to acquire the grammatical, the pronunciation.
How?
By
How? Every variety has its own pronunciation features, right? Oh, yeah. When you talk about British English that is used in British Isles, people in Birmingham use certain forms of pronunciation features. They have their own pronunciation features. Yeah. So what are the components that constitute standard English? What makes a certain variety a standard English? What makes a certain variety a standard English? Why not Indian English? Why RP? Why GA? Why not Cockney English? Why not Scottish?
I think it's become standard because the people from worldwide accept it to learn to have their teacher in their country teach their students about their standards, about their grammatical, about their pronunciation in their textbook, in their course.
Since there are so many English varieties nowadays, and we have just discussed that every English variety has its own unique features of can we consider every English variety as a standard?
Okay, from my perspective, I think we can't, because if we don't have if all of variety is standard, and we have communication between them, what is the middle, what is the central that we have to focus on, that we're gonna make us understanding? If you all have our own, if you all have your own standard, and I also have standard, and when we are talking each other, I use my standard, you use your standard. So what we are talking about, I cannot understand your, of course not. That's why we have to have standard to focus one, that all of the people around the world have to know that this is the standard that we have to focus on, that we have to study, and to make people around the world easier to make understanding where we don't know cultural backgrounds of others. Yes.
Oh.
What you have just mentioned is about contrary to what you have just responded previously, because you have just mentioned that we consider as a standard, but based on different contexts in their own context. How about if when we're talking about some particular English varieties, and if you consider them as the standard, but standard in their own context, everyone in that particular community accepted these particular features of English, even though it's not the same as the British or American. Can we, in that case, in that particular community, can we consider them?
I think if we focus it's just in particular context or community, yes, we can, because in those community we can understand each other. But when you have to, of course, to speak with others, it cannot. Yeah.
So, you mentioned that worldwide acceptance leads to a consideration of a certain variety to be standard English, right? So, what makes people accept certain varieties to enjoy standard status? What makes them accept that this variety has to be labeled standard English? What makes them believe that this variety, only this variety?
Okay. For one factor that I believe is just majority of users when.
Because RP is used only by 3% of the British population. Okay, I want in London people don't say I want a bottle of water. They say what? A bottle of water. Tea is gone. No, tea in the middle of the word is gone. I want a bottle of water. This one is better than you. See?
Actually, what you have just mentioned is up to
Minority. RP is the minority. You know, it's used by minority. It's a tiny bit of people in the UK. Why is it considered standard?
yeah. What you mentioned.
Yes.
I mean, actually, it's somehow linked to my next question. Right? Even when we're talking about the standard, what I mean by standard?
Let them answer first.
Use the language in the same way, no matter who you are, no matter what are your nationality is. So, based on Ajahn Sharp just mentioned, even British people, they use English in different ways. So, how do you define?
They don't use RP at all. If I want a bottle of water, they will. Are you from royal family? Oh, did you graduate from Oxford University? Are you posh? Because you sound posh. Your accent sounds very posh. You must be rich. Oh, I hint my answer. I give a hint. I give a hint already. I give a hint already.
In that case, like what you have just mentioned, you have just mentioned that standard. You're talking about standard English. You're linked to the examination and testing, right? Okay. When we're talking about standard or non-standard, let's say when we're talking about standard English, I feel somehow the other English variety are excluded, are marginalized, or disvalued. Do we have any other option, other terms to replace the word standard or non-standard? Yeah, if we do not want to use the word standard, English, for example, because when we use the word standard, it means, okay, when we consider some particular English variety like a British American as standard English, what does it mean? It means other English varieties are excluded, right? Are not considered as standard, and it automatically can be considered as disvalued, be marginalized by people. So in that particular case, do you think if do you have any other terms to use to replace instead of using the word standard?
Okay.
Because when we're talking about standard and non-standard, those who consider as standard will be considered as higher or superior than other varieties. So do you, from your own perspective, do you have any other terms to use, to utilize, to employ instead of using the word standard English?
Okay, based on his example, like standard always exist in context of testing, right? So it's the context of formal and informal. So I prefer to use the word that formal language and informal language. Yes, or writing language and spoken language.
So it's
English in general. Yeah.
Like
we are talking about English varieties now. We are talking about world Englishes. We're talking about global Englishes, right? And you have just mentioned that there are those who are considered as standard English varieties, which are British and American, right? And those who are not considered as standard ones, right? Like Thai English or ASEAN Englishes, or those who are from expanding circle countries. But when we're talking about standard English, it's a kind of discrimination others automatically.
so what about if I consider as English native speakers and non-native English speakers? or English as a second language speaker like that?
Talking about native speakers,
Yes.
somehow those who are not considered as native speakers will be automatically excluded and marginalized and disvalued.
It will become like
Maybe we can think of competent English users. When we're talking about those competent English users, no matter if you are native or non-native, as long as you are competent, that's fine. So the same, the same. I mean the same. The same to this particular perspective. When we're talking about the concept of standard or non-standard, if we don't want to use the terms as standard, for example, do we have any other terms to replace the word standard?
For my perspective, I think the word standard can be replaced in the word medium English or the main English in using. Like the way that we use English in understandable way, English which when we talk to our interlocutor and he or she understand us, as long as it not lead to communication breakdown, this is the way that we call standard in another way.
Yeah, because labeling certain varieties standard, non-standard is highly problematic because this may lead to prejudicial and discriminatory practices, right? So whether you have different terms or not is what you have to think about. But I would say that there are two hypotheses that that underlie the standardization of a certain variety. Okay, my question is why do people accept a certain variety to be standard variety? There are two hypotheses. The first one is inherent value hypothesis. So many people believe that a certain variety has, beautiful sounds, has more beautiful English sounds than others. Do you agree with this hypothesis? Bottle of water is more beautiful than bottle of water. Sounds more pleasing to listen to than others. Indian English is not standard English because it doesn't sound pleasing enough. This is a 5-star hotel. See?
I think sound is, we can't consider sound as standard English because sometimes the sound is like accent, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it always, for me, I have experience about misunderstanding because of the accent in different way, different from me. So it has ever lead me to communication breakdown because of the sound, the way they pronounce the word.
Yes, because the term standard English cannot be defined by means of linguistics. It cannot be defined linguistically, but it can be defined sociolinguistically or socially, right? If you think that a certain variety has, more beautiful sounds than others, this is what we call prejudiced. You are linguistically prejudiced. Why? What makes people think that RP is more beautiful than other varieties? I have already hinted. Why do people believe that RP sounds more pleasing to listen to than other varieties of English within the British Isles?
Maybe RP mostly used by royal, right?
Yes, because it is associated with those in power who can dictate what is right or wrong. Right? So, social factor makes a certain variety standard, not the language, not the linguistic factors. That's why standard English is a social variety. It's not a linguistic variety. So we cannot say that this is standard, this is non-standard. Because it's not linguistics, it is social. It is socially based. Right. That's why we have the other hypothesis, which is called norm-driven hypothesis. It's norm that drives a certain variety to become standard. Right. If I ask you to listen to varieties of Spanish and ask you to judge which one is standard Spanish, you would not be able to judge because you don't know Spanish. But people in Spain and people in Venezuela are able to judge, right? They would think that European Spanish is standard English because it's from Spain, right? Because Spain is the most powerful country within the Spanish-speaking community. So it's the context that makes a certain variety become standards, right? It's an abstract. It's an abstract. Standard English is an abstract variety. It does not exist linguistically. Right, right. That's my last point. Okay. Yeah. Q&A session. Are there any questions from the audience? Yeah, you want to add?
Yes, Ajahn Devat. Ajahn Devat. Yes.
20 years ago. Around 20 years ago.
They haven't born yet.
Already? Okay. When I was an undergraduate.
Google is a proper noun, right? And when we write it in a sentence, we might say we use Google or we search this information from Google. But 10 years later, it's become verbs. Yeah, it becomes verb. I Google it. I Google it. Oh, I don't know this concept. Google it. It's acceptable in academic writing, you see? Is this acceptable? I used to read a paper with Google as a verb in an academic paper. Okay, now can I say, oh, girl, I don't understand this concept, ChatGPT.
Yes.
Do you think it is a linguistic innovation or not? Another question? Really? I forgot.
Innovation.
I'm afraid that someone will. Okay, this is my.
Let them answer the first question.
Remember my question. I'm afraid that I will forget my question. You see, this is my experience with Ajahn Faiza in London, in Oxford, in a bookstore. When the cashier asked me, "You need a bag? What bag? I am in a bookstore, not in a garden. Why? จะเอาแมลงไปทำแปะอะไร And then he looked at me. Pardon? You need a bag? 3 times he asked me, and I couldn't give him an answer. I don't understand what is bag. I don't understand, what bag. And then his facial expression showed that made me feel embarrassing. Oh, I feel embarrassed. And when I got it, I felt so stupid. So, what is your idea about this scenario, about this circumstance? So I have 2 questions.
I would like to answer the first question. As you said that, can we consider the word ChatGPT as we use Google in terms of verb? I think I consider it as a linguistic innovation as long as our interlocutor or among people around us understand what we want to convey the meaning. I think this is the way of innovation.
The second one about the bug. At first, that Ajahn didn't know about the meaning about the bugs. At that moment, yes, with that pronunciation, I defined it as the broken language because it doesn't do the duty of language that have to make the intelligibility. But when teacher knows that what the bug was, that's time it's become the linguistic innovation because if she use it again she will know what the bug is.
What have you learned from her scenario, from her encounter?
So it's gonna be linguistic innovation or the broken language. It depends on the it can be understand between interlocutor or not. It can be do the duty of language or not.
Right, because communication is two-way, remember? Yes. Sometimes when we talk to native speakers, then we feel all the burden to make our language understandable, so that our interlocutor who are native speakers can understand us perfectly. But communication is two-way, so we have to meet halfway. Right? We have to meet halfway. Native speakers need to simplify the language, and we have to also try to understand it. We cannot just refuse our responsibility to understand them. That's how we communicate, right? Yeah. Yes, sure. Very hard question.
Okay, as a teacher in the future, inshallah, okay, I just say that there's two way in informal situation, right? For example, in class, if there are the class of writing and grammar class, right, that I have to consider, like, I have to stand for standard, because we have to teach them, especially for those who are younger age. We have to let them like easy way to start their English by standard, like okay 1, 2, 3 this step, and then when they are older, get older like that, I have to put more to awareness that okay, your English is when you make the errorness in your English is don't worry, because in our real life, they also have a new language, a new English. Yeah, allowed. Yes. Yes. Yes, because like speak like that.
Okay. What do you think about twisted English lexicals in creative writing? For example, this poem, I have 4 last months of tragedies. Why not? Why? Because they are September, October, no partner, and disabled.
Yeah.
So, what are they? Do you think? Do you consider broken English or linguistic innovation in terms of creative writing?
For me, writing, of course, my answer is going to be broken language, because in writing, we also have our standard in writing because it's kind of formal context. So that's why we have to focus on the standard. Okay. If we explain later, of course, it can be linguistic innovation, and we could understand exhibit. Yeah, but you have to more clarify, because when you use another word that others don't know, so you have to elaborate more for make understanding. Yeah.
So, no more questions. Okay.
Okay, do you have any recommendations for those people who see standard English superior than others and he saw others as broken? Okay. What are What are requirements for considering features of languages as a linguistic innovation? It's just the last.
Yes, we have done this already.
Yeah.
Thank you for the audience. Okay.
So, whether standard or non-standard or not, standard should be earned in the sense that it can be learned, not born into with any form of native advantage. I would say so. It's not because you are from the inner circle and your language is automatically considered standard, right? It has to be through education, right? You can be competent. I would rather use competent users rather than standard English users, right? You can be from anywhere and you can be competent users. Okay, so that's the last point to convey. Thank you very much for this group.